I spent the past 2 months aim training and trying to get aim by accuracy. And it took me from aiming like this
Balcony.
to aiming like this. Oh my god! You're probably wondering, how can I get perfect aim like Paco has? I'm joking, by the way. Believe it or not, I've not always been a god at aiming like I am now. It took a lot of aim training and research and paving over old habits that I used to have. But the point I'm making this video right now is so that you guys can also learn this and possibly even get better than me. And I'm sure some of you already are. One last thing before we start. In order to get good aim, you have to stay consistent and really put time into learning strategies and techniques. The way you can practice this is by using an aim trainer. If you're not familiar with aim trainers, they use exercises to make your aim more consistent. They range from beginner exercises to top of line difficulty. And there's scenarios for every single thing you would need to train, ever. Personally, I use Kovacs. It's $15 on Steam. An alternative on Steam is Aim Labs. It's free and maybe even better. Or you can always use the training grounds in the game that you're playing if it has one. I also recommend doing this to work on the recoil for specific guns in the game you play. The moment you have all been waiting for, it's flicking. If you're already pretty good at flicking, you can skip this part, but I recommend you actually try this scenario. It's good to warm up on, and it's also pretty fun to just beat your old record. All of the targets are pretty close together, you can flick on them pretty easy. They're also pretty large, so it's pretty hard to miss them. Try to flick with explosive energy. Don't flick so hard that you shake your hand, but flick just enough so you're either flicking perfectly to the target, flicking over the target, or flicking under. Preferably, you'll be flicking under or onto the target. If you do miss, try to readjust as fast as you can and as accurately as you can. So that is part of flicking. Try to think about flicking in a two-part motion. The initial motion of going towards the target and then the motion of readjusting. Flicking isn't always perfectly onto the head. Sometimes, even pros, they over-flick or under-flick, but they just readjust so fast so you don't notice it. If the last scenario is too easy for you, you should try one wall, two targets. There's a much bigger wall for the targets to pop onto. A little twist to this one, you only have a 2-round magazine. It refills every time you hit a target. So you can miss one, hit a target, and it fully refills your magazine. But if you miss two, you will have to reload. Damn, bro, you only have 2 bullets. Gotta really practice, man. If you want to focus on one target at a time, Kata Reflex Easy is pretty good for this. Targets are relatively large, it's easy to learn, and it's actually pretty fun to do this. So to start, you're going to want to place your crosshair directly in the middle of the screen. When a target pops up, you're going to want to flick to the target, shoot once, and then flick back to the middle and repeat that. If you try to keep hitting the target, it will disappear and then it'll set you in a bad chain because they'll just keep popping up and you'll just keep missing them. So every time you flick, hit the target, or even if you don't, still just flick back to the middle and wait for the next target to pop up. If that one's still a little too hard for you, I recommend trying wide wall 3 targets. For this one, it has a magazine again like the other one, but instead of 2, you have 3 this time. The targets are spaced out a lot more since the area they can spawn in is increased, and this one's very good for horizontal and a little bit of vertical flicking. A scenario that will be very good for testing your reaction time is Fireworks Flick Easy. On this one, targets will come out of the center circle at a random pattern. Make it to the edge of the wall, they will disappear. So it's a good way to work on your reaction time and see how well you can keep the targets from not hitting the wall. I forgot to mention, if you like any of these layouts but don't like the difficulty, there's usually easier and or harder ones that you can try out. You just have to do a little bit of searching. Tracking is by far probably the weakest area in most people's game because everyone wants to be flashy and hit flicks, but they completely ignore this part of training. In order to gain smooth tracking, you need to train yourself not to flick back to the target, but instead start by smoothly and slowly adjusting your crosshair to the target. This is necessary to have consistent tracking because if you have jumpy aim in a tracking situation, it is going to increase the chances that you're going to over flick or under flick to the target. Most aim trainers have playlists. I would recommend starting on the easiest one. On Kovacs, there's basic, intermediate, advanced, and then movement, and then plus a bunch of custom ones. I recommend starting with smoothness training 60. It's consistent and it helps you get down the smoothness of tracking. The target doesn't move too fast, but also doesn't move too slow. There's no variable moves, it only goes left to right. It's perfect for beginners. You should also try close long strafes easy. It's basically the same thing as the last one, but instead of moving left to right, there's more variable in the strafe patterns and it's a lot closer. This is good for beginners to learn close range tracking, as in most playlists have a lot of close range tracking scenarios. It's also just a good skill to have. Another beginner exercise I recommend is air far long strafe 70%. It adds vertical tracking in the mix for a little bit of a difficulty increase. I forgot to mention, but this one and the last one, opponents both have health bars, and once it drops down to 0, they get eliminated and then they come back. These scenarios are made just so you can get a feel for the aim trainer and get used to the mechanics that you're going to need to know. If these scenarios are too easy, I think it might be time to move on to the intermediate stage. The next scenario I recommend you do is thin aiming long slow invincible. The target is much thinner and moves in unknown patterns, and it does not have a health bar. It also moves slightly faster than what you've seen before, so good difficulty boost. A tip for this scenario, try to match the pace that the target's moving. Don't try to guess where he's going to move, but react to where he's moving. The next one I recommend is something like this one. The specific one I use is Fugla XY Vert Easy. Basically it takes vertical and horizontal tracking and adds it together, and you only have to track it in a small area. Try to keep your crosshair on the target, don't over adjust, and don't try to guess where the ball is going to move. Next is kind of close fast strafes. It's like the close strafes, but instead much faster and different variations of strafes. For this one, don't do what I did. Don't flick back and forth to the target. Instead, make yourself slowly readjust. As the target is constantly moving, if you flick, you're going to be on target for about a second, but then he's just going to move again. So try to slowly readjust as I start doing towards the end of this clip. You'll have much better luck. Air Invincible is the last tracking scenario I'm going to talk about. Vertical, horizontal, diagonal strafing, and the target's invincible. He moves pretty fast, he comes close to you, goes far away, so it has a little bit of everything. It's really good to work on. Now it's time to get into the flicking and tracking part. So the first one I'm going to bring up is Vox TS Visco Varied. This one combines almost all of the properties of the last ones you've seen. The targets move, there's variable distance, and they also have a health bar. So instead of just flicking and clicking on them once, you have to flick and then track them while you're shooting at them. And their health does not regenerate like in some harder ones. The next one you should try is Bounce 180 Reload. This specific one doesn't have tracking, but there is a version that does. I think you should try doing the original version before you try the tracking, just to see how the balls move and how they bounce. This one does have the reload mechanic, so if you miss too many shots, you're gonna have to reload, obviously. If you find this one too easy after a couple tries or after a couple days, however long it takes, you should switch to the tracking one because it offers much more difficulty. That's gonna be the end of the video. I've never done a video like this before, so if you like it, let me know by leaving a like or leaving a comment down below. And if you guys were here to see my progression throughout the months, let me know down in the comments. I'm gonna let some clips play out so you can see how much I've improved. Thanks for watching. Go to the rest of the video.
Good shot.
I don't know.
Entrance?
Loading new mag.
Womp, got it. There you go.
What?
Ooh, never mind.
Construction.
15 seconds left. Op 4, you have been spotted. Op 4
He's
eliminated.
fucking dead.
There's a 0 somewhere. No. Yeah, there's a. Got this. Nice.
Friendly